Multiple reports out that Arian Smith is going to be out for at least some time with a leg injury. A lot of folks saying that's a broken leg, and this is another injury for Georgia that they're dealing with this season. This year has been a rough go for certainly for the receivers at Georgia. I mean, George, Don Blaylock, now Arian Smith. You've had Kyrus Jackson coming back from a knee scope, not as big of a deal as some of these other ones, but a lot of people ask me what's going on up there that there's this many injuries with the receivers specifically, and the short answer is I don't know. I think it's a good question. I think it's something that Kirby and company are going to have to take a look at in the off season. It's too late right now to adjust what you did in the past. There's nothing you can do about that. But I do think that taking a look at everything that you're doing isn't a bad idea. I mean, step one of this is you're playing football, so guys are gonna get hurt. There's no way around it. ACLs are not abnormal at all. Broken bones are not abnormal at all. This could certainly be accumulation of a lot of different things adding up at once. But Kirby Smart's not going to sit around and watch part of his program have a hard time competing because guys are injured. This is not something that's being done on purpose. I can assure you of that. So I think, probably what's going to happen in the offseason is they're going to look at everything, whether it's not whether it's from the turf to strength and conditioning. So every single thing that they're doing is probably going to get a really hard look at it. I mean, Kirby's not the type of guy, and no really head coach that I've ever met is the type of guy that's like, what can you do? No, that's not how these guys are. They're not wired that way. In terms of missing Arian for at least some time, uh, he's not played a lot this season to begin with. But when he's out there, he's extremely explosive, as you saw against Mizzou over the weekend. And it hurts. It's just another guy that you don't have um, out there. And right now, Georgia needs as many players as they can at receiver because that's where they're the most banged up. How long will it take George to get back? Will he get back? We don't know. Don Blaylock, how long will it take him? We don't know. It looks like before the SEC championship game, which is right around the corner. So you've got a little ways to go here before you have games that you could really that would end your season. But you can't just roll out there and play the first week. I mean, that's why there are preseason games in the NFL. Georgia doesn't have that ability because of playing in college football. So we'll just see where they go. You still got Lab McConkey out there. A.D. Mitchell, Kyrus has come back and seems to be full go. Jermaine Burton has dealt with injuries, and Jermaine is a heck of a player for the Dogs. Needless to say, Brock Bowers, who's not a receiver but a tight end, you got Darnell. I think if the best case scenario here is that Smith is not that hurt, but I just find that hard to believe. And he can come back before the playoff games. And really, even more so realistic would be the return of George Pickens. I mean, if you get George back, that changes the ball game in a major way. Just think about two games, okay? Think about the Missouri game in 2020 when George was out there really unguarded or unguardable. Very easy plays for touchdowns. There's not been a lot of easy this season necessarily at receiver for Georgia. And then think about the Baylor game in 2019 going into 20, the New Year's Day game in the Sugar Bowl that Georgia won, where he was the MVP. George was unstoppable that game. Baylor didn't know whether to get on top of him or to give him some space. You couldn't win either way. They decided to get off of him, and he had like 12 catches for 100 something yards and a touchdown. So George changes the math in a major way that really no player at Georgia does at receiver. Now, Brock Bowers has been a real problem for people. Darnell certainly could become, a real problem for people. But I just, the return of George would be a significant jump for the production of a Georgia offense that's the third best in the SEC in terms of scoring right now. And there's not a lot of players in the history of Georgia's football program like George Pickens. It would be a shame for him to play basically a year and then a pandemic year, and that's all we see of George. But that's possible. Now, you go out and recruit and you go get these guys because guys like George leave, guys like Arian get hurt. But if you get Blaylock back for the championship game, he is a steady, uh, can be game changing receiver, but he's a steady receiver that they've not had this season. If you get George and Dom back for the playoff, you're getting pretty close to full strength at that stage. I mean, there's not a lot of 1-2 tandems like that, and those guys have not played the entire season. They've not played. I mean, George has been going out there with A.D. Mitchell and Lab McConkey, guys who had no experience in college football before this season. Jermaine Burton is still young and is a very good receiver. So I, you know, I don't know what is going on with the lower body injuries at Georgia. I'm not smart enough at all to say, but I do know that that will get looked at very hard. The the other day, yesterday, I was seeing the construction up there at Butts, and there's just a ton of construction going on. I don't know if they're going to, I don't know what's causing this stuff. And it could be that they believe in what they believe in, and it's never been a problem until now. It could be that they are overworking guys because guys like, overworking. What I mean to say is they're getting extra reps because George and Dom have not been out there the entire season, and Burton has been missing, and Kearis Jackson has been missing, and the body can only take so much. It could be that plus this, that, or the other. I mean, we don't know. So, Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint, I didn't even mention him. He has been dealing with stuff. Um, they just the 2013 season had a lot of injuries. But the game at Tennessee that year about wrecked the whole team, the program. You had Keith Marshall getting hurt. At the end of that game, you had J.J. Green running all over the Vols. So Georgia doesn't want any part of that. But Neyland has been a real problem in terms of the surface there for a long, long time. The question is, moving forward, is there something that's happened at Georgia that they're doing that's a problem, or is, like, I think, and it's an accumulation of a lot of things, whether that be, I think guys are taking a lot of burden right now on their bodies because of missing players, and it's adding up. You thought you'd have Eric Gilbert. He's not there. Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint's been out a lot of the season. Um, George has not been there. Blaylock's not been there. Kearis has not been there. That's 5 receivers just alone right there. So Kirby has always been careful about monitoring the health and working or overworking the players. It's smart because this shows that you can get in those positions if guys kind of go too hard. I'll tell you this, and this last story is anecdotal, but you know, when I was in college, we overdid it, and when I went back in about 2010 or 11, coach the same basketball coach in college was the same guy that was there when we were there, Coach Schmatzer, Dan Schmatzer, total legend, and he coached 29 years, and he was wrapping his career up at the time that I went back to go visit him, and he just we were walking, and he just stopped. He said, we went too hard, and at the end of the seasons, we broke down, and that's why I think we never really had as much postseason success as we should have when I was playing. We're probably not apples to apples comparison there with Georgia, but coaches know, and that's why Kirby's tried to keep it limited. When you got this many injuries, it's not just the injured guys that get hurt, it's the other guys that get wear and tear on their body. We've not seen injuries on the defensive line the way we've seen at wide receiver. Now, why is that? That's a more physical position. You've got 300-pound people running at you and hitting you every single play. Receivers don't deal with that. So my suspicion is it's that they've just sort of run out of guys, and the guys who are playing are taking too many snaps. But I don't know the answer. But it is a disturbing trend at Georgia, and it's something that Kirby, Ron Corson, and everybody in strength and conditioning is going to have to take a look at. My suspicion, though, is it's really they've run out of guys, and the guys who are going a lot. That's you can't avoid it after a while. All right, Dean Lincoln from Dog Post. We'll see you at Tennessee, and we'll see you over on the website.